Hello, everyone. Welcome to Herbology 102. If you were in this class, it's because you passed our assessment. So you are aware of what we covered in Herbology 101. So we will not be recapping any of that information. We're going to just start fresh with our own material. This week, we are going to be talking about understanding and planning your garden as a witch. Okay, just to be clear, all of our discussions in this class will be about planning a witch's garden. Of course, you could definitely use them otherwise if you choose to, but specifically, we're discussing about having a witch's garden. So, first of all, let me just introduce myself. If you had Herbology 101 last semester, then you are already familiar with me. My name is Professor Carla. You can call me Carla or Professor, whatever. I am a green slash kitchen witch. I also am a little bit eclectic. And I'm a mother. I actually have one daughter. She is 3, and I've got a couple of dogs. I'm married. Just a little bit about me. Okay, and just a little bit of a disclaimer here. Since I do have a 3-year-old, it does tend to get a little loud in my house. I do all of my recordings for our classes at home, so sometimes I'm able to kind of get away where it's a little bit quieter, but it doesn't always work out that way. So if you hear some noise in the background, some squealing or screaming or laughing or whatever, it's her. She's fine. She's just 3, so it gets loud sometimes. I've tried to kind of just wait until I have some quiet time to record everything, but it ends up putting me so far behind because it just doesn't happen that often here. So I'll try to cut out any kind of background noise that I possibly can, but I can't always cut it out. But you'll see what I'm talking about as we go through class. And I just have a habit of always mentioning that at the beginning of every class, just in case someone's just popping in, they'll know what the noise is. So let's go ahead and look at our syllabus. You should be able to find the syllabus in our building on the server. So in this class, we're going to be discussing different gardening styles and techniques that correspond to different magical practices and how to incorporate all of that into your own craft. So as I said at the beginning, we are not going to be talking about like specific plant care or anything like that. We will not be talking about poisonous plants or identifying plants, none of that. All of that is Herbology 101. If you feel like you don't feel comfortable with that type of information, I would highly suggest that you don't take this class and instead take Herbology 101 just to refamiliarize yourself. Of course, to get into this class, you did have to pass all of that assessment. But if you think you need a refresher and you don't feel comfortable with this class, it's no big deal. Like really, it's totally fine to drop this class and go back and go through that class again. So in this class, all of the assignments are mandatory. We have capped the admission for this class, and everything that you do will be graded. So if you do not turn in your assignments, unfortunately, we will drop you from the course. All of your assignments must be submitted on time. Now, with that being said, I am human just as much as you are, so I am going to be late sometimes. You are going to be late sometimes. If something comes up, like something genuinely came up, please just let me know, because I really do understand that. Things are going to come up with me. Like I said, I've got a child. I'm married. I have a home. I have a life too. So things do happen. Sometimes you just get delayed or whatever. So please just communicate with me. As long as you do, I'm really understanding. I promise. And you will receive a final grade for this class. And it's going to be mandatory that you pass Herbology 102 to ever be admitted into any future upper level herbology courses. So if we have a 103 or 104, you will have had to take this class and pass it. Okay? So for this class, I only really suggest that you have a notebook for note taking. Of course, you don't have to have an actual notebook. If you want to use a note taking app, or some people even use a Discord server that is strictly for note taking, that works too. Whatever works for you, just a way that you can keep up with what we're discussing in the class. So let's talk about what you can expect for how our classes are going to function. So on Mondays, I will release a quiz over material that covers what we discussed the previous week. Any reading assignments for the upcoming week as well. I won't do a lot of reading assignments. There might just occasionally be one that I throw in there. And honestly, I may not end up doing any. But if I do a reading assignment, it'll be given to you on that Monday. this is not really a formal class day. It's just kind of a day to check in and get assignments for the week. So on Tuesdays, I'll post a link to the video class, and I always post these on YouTube. If you've had me before or if you had me in another class, you know how my classes function. They're all the same. I always do voiceover slide videos and post them on YouTube. I do this just because I've tried this in the past, and this seems to be the best way. I know that it doesn't always work best for everyone, but I have to kind of consider the majority. So this way, if you're not able to finish the sitting through the class in one session, you can always go back and listen to it again later. And, you don't have to report to class at any certain time. So it works out best for those in different time zones or those that have a busy schedule. So this just seems to be what works best. So those will be posted on Tuesday, and then you'll have almost the whole week to kind of get through that class. And they normally won't be really long classes. I try to keep them, and I say not really long, but if you've been in college before, then you're kind of familiar with how long classes typically tend to be, somewhere between 50 and 120 minutes, something like that. But these classes will probably run anywhere between like 10 and 30 minutes, somewhere in there. Occasionally, they might be a little bit shorter, but typically they won't be much longer than 30 minutes, if that ever happens. So on Fridays at 4 p.m., we will do a discussion, check-in, recap day. So what I'll do is I will just be in our class discussion channel, and it'll just be a Q&A session. If you all have questions that you want to ask me, I will be available at that time. And if you don't have any questions and you feel like you're doing well and you don't really need to check in, you absolutely do not have to attend that. This is just if you're feeling a little bit lost on something, or if you have questions, or you need to check in with me about something. I will be there for you all at that time. And just to be clear, there will probably be weeks that we don't do that. If it seems like a really easy load of a week, not a lot of material we're going over, or pretty straightforward, then we may just not hold that session. But I'll let you all know ahead of time. Of course, if something comes up for me where I can't be there, I will do my best to let you all know ahead of time too. This class the Friday class that isn't really mandatory. It's just if you need to ask questions. So let's talk about your assignments. There will be weekly homework assignments. First of all, there will be quizzes, and there will also be questions at the end of every class. So you do have to answer the questions at the end of every class, and you do need to do the quizzes. The questions are really, there's no right or wrong answer. It is purely based on your comprehension of the material, and it's really just to get you engaged with what we're discussing in the class. Now, the quizzes are right or wrong. There are going to be some questions that are, they might be tricky. You do have to have looked through the class material, followed along with the class on the video, done the reading assignments if there are any. You will need to do that for the quizzes because there are right and wrong answers for those. So, again, the weekly homework questions are just going to be a pass-fail. If you did it, you passed. If you didn't, you fail. Obviously, if you're coming in and you're giving me one-word answers, that's not going to be a pass. I want to see that you thought about the answers. But the quiz will be graded on a number scale. So there will also be a final project for this course. And what I want you to do is design a garden for your practice. And by the time we get done with this class, you'll have realized that it's going to be different for everyone. You're going to have to consider the space that you have, what your pathway is, what your belief system is. Everything is going to go into your design for your garden. So what I want you to do is either write a description of it, draw a picture, whatever it is. But either way, you're going to need to include details on the placement and the usage of each plant and why you chose to design it that way, and also how that fits into your practice. But even more importantly, I want to know any potential issues that you see with your design. That could be possibly a lack of nutrients for plants, maybe flooding, a lack of space, etc. This is pretty much going to be graded on creativity, the correct uses of plants and techniques, and that you are also using accurate information. There will be some things that I am not going to be familiar with, just because I'm obviously not on everyone's pathway. But as long as you can back up every decision with a really good explanation for why you chose to do that there, or what that symbolizes, then I'm absolutely going to be supportive of that. So that will be graded. Also, here on our syllabus, you can see our grading scale. Like I said, if you're in college, you're familiar with this grading scale. This tends to be across the board. 90 to 100 is an A, B is an 80 to 89, C 70 to 79, D 60 to 69. A passing grade for this class is going to be a C. A D is not considered passing. Okay, so you need to at least get a C to pass this class and move on to any future upper level courses that we have. Okay, let's go over our course schedule. We're just going to kind of go over this really briefly, just discussing what we're going to be talking about each week. So today we're talking about our introduction, which we're doing right now, and then we're going to talk about understanding and planning your garden. Next week, we're going to be discussing how to create a sacred space. Week 3 is going to be about spells and magic in your garden. And week 4, which I actually will not be here for, I will actually be on vacation that week, but the material will be available. Our class aide, Hannah, will actually be posting that for me. Week 4, we are going to be discussing the elemental garden. Week 5, the medicinal garden. Week 6, the seasonal garden. Week 7, the lunar garden. And then week 8 will be tiny or indoor gardens. And I know a lot of people might get a lot of use out of that week, so that should be a really fun one. The very last week is just going to be for any kind of review. If anyone has questions or if you need help on your final project, anything like that, that'll just be what that class that week is going to be for. We won't have any formal classes the last week. It'll just be for review questions if you have them. And that will be when your final project is due. It needs to be turned in. Actually, I'm just looking at our syllabus now and I have the date wrong. The date for our summer semester of 2021, it needs to be turned in by the 31st at 9 p.m. So I apologize for that. That date is wrong on our syllabus. I'm glad I saw that now so I could tell you. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into our class today. So let's talk about understanding the witch's garden. So for most witches, and not all of them, but for most of us that do keep a garden, this tends to be how we connect with nature. But further than that, it's also how we connect with our deities and the elements. This is more obvious for those following like a green witch pathway, but it also does appear on other ones. And it can be on any witch's pathway. There's no real limit on that. But this would definitely resonate with all of the green witches for sure. But other witches have gardens too, not just green witches. And this is something that is deeply rooted in our practice. In Herbology 101, we talked about the significance of raising your own herbs and spices to use in your spell work and how much more potent that will make your spells. So everything is done with intention. It's really, really helpful for healing and our spell work. But also, a lot of witches use their garden as natural indicators for the Sabbats. Just a side note, most of the Sabbats are based, maybe even just loosely, on the transitions in nature throughout the year. So you can visually see that in your garden as the seasons are progressing. Witches also use their gardens sometimes to preserve endangered plants. This is a really good space for you to raise a plant that you know is not thriving outside of your garden, especially if you need it for yourself or if you just want to make sure that that plant does not become extinct. And also, it's a permanent sacred space for witches, especially those green witches or those who really feel in tune with nature. This is a built-in sacred space, so to speak. And we'll talk more about that. So whenever you are planning your garden, you want to think about what is most important to you. Do you want to have certain plants? Are you working on creating a meditation space? Is this going to be a space to honor a specific deity? Is it for healing? Think about what your intentions are with your garden. And it may just be that you want to be able to raise your own herbs and spices that you want to put into your spell work. That's fine too. But think about what's most important. Also, you need to think about what kind of space you have. Not all of us have the same kind of space. Some people live in apartments, others of us live on farms and we have a lot of land to work with. Some people have small backyards, some people don't have backyards at all. It really just varies. You have to think about your space. You also need to think about when light is available in your space, what kind of irrigation is available there naturally, and think outside the box. So, you also need to think about what limitations you have. Are you renting your home? Because if that's the case, you're going to have to take into account, different restrictions, what your landlord will allow and what they won't. Also, do you live in an apartment with no green space? So maybe you need a potted garden. Those sorts of things. You definitely need to think about your limitations. And do you need to be considerate of anyone else in your planning? I know a lot of us have children. Some of us have roommates. You need to think about who else is going to be using that space. And that does include wildlife. Think about what wildlife is going to have access to your garden, because unfortunately, there's not always something you can do about that. So you want to make sure that the plants that you're going to be putting there are going to be safe for what wildlife is around as well. And what is this space like during each season or weather condition? Do you have a lot of snow? Is it extremely hot there? All these conditions are going to dictate what plants will grow well in your space and what kind of protection you're going to need to give. If you live in a space that tends to be really, really windy, you might need to provide some sort of coverage for your plants so that they're not destroyed. Or if it gets snowy a lot, you might need to have plants that you're able to bring into the home to protect during those frigid temperatures. Okay, so that's all we have for our class today. Let's talk about our homework questions. Do you currently have a garden of your own? I know some of us do. Some of us haven't gotten there yet, and that's okay. If you do have one, tell us what it's like. If you don't have one, that's okay. Just let us know why you haven't been able to have one. Is it a lack of space? Is it a lack of interest? Are you still trying to figure out what's going to work for you? Okay, and number 2, what do you like most about the idea of having your own witch's garden? Is it that you're looking forward to having somewhere where you can feel at peace, that you can meditate, that feels really sacred for you? Or maybe you're looking forward to having a space where you can grow your own herbs and spices, which will be much more potent for your spell work. Whatever it is, what do you like most about the idea of having your own garden? So that's all that we have. Remember, these homework questions are required. You do have to answer them. And I'll be posting a quiz over this material next week, and you do need to do the quiz as well. Just don't forget, all of the assignments for this class are going to be mandatory and they will be graded. So I just wanted to make sure everybody's really clear on that. I will probably not give you a lot of reminders about turning in assignments. However, if you are going to be late on something, like I said, please just let me know. I promise you, I'm really understanding. I get that things happen. Most of us here at the Academy are going to be understanding. We all have IRL lives and stuff like that. So we're totally open to talking to you and, being more flexible. All right. Well, that's all that we have for today. And I will talk to you guys in the next one. Bye.